Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Star Trek Sunday. And it is an extra special one because, well, you will all remember, sorry, wrong way, gesturing that way, Keira from last week. Well, I have hassled and cajoled Keira into being the regular host, have I not?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much for having me. It didn't really take much coercion, did it? So.
Well, it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, you were such an amazing guest last week that I thought, well, we really, really need more of you. And loving the cosplay, rocking the cosplay today.
Thank you. I just need to get myself a phaser rifle and then I can go shoot some giant viruses.
Yeah, macro viruses, aren't they?
Macrovirus, that's the one.
Macro viruses, yeah, absolutely. And is that the same? So you did some amazing cosplay during the week, I saw on Twitter.
Thank you.
You did B'Elanna.
I did, yeah. I did painted on the Klingon cranial ridges, and it was the same top, but it's the sort of, they all wear one underneath their uniform, so I can kind of get away with using it for Janeway as well.
And you absolutely nailed B'Elanna's hair as well, like you're nailing Janeway's. I mean, well, I'm just jealous because you've got hair. But
I just come here to be flattered. That's all.
Well, you certainly were on Twitter. I noticed you were making a lot of people very thirsty.
Thank you. You know what? I've had more marriage proposals in the last couple of weeks since I started putting Star Trek costumes on than I have in my whole life. So. We'll
Absolutely.
See.
Well, and do you know what? And we've got a request in straight away from Ed. Hello, Ed. Thank you for joining us. No orbital skydiving suit.
I don't own a skydiving suit. I'm so sorry.
An orbital. Right. Well, that's one to consider for future, then, isn't it?
You know what?
Yeah.
I've always been so scared of skydiving, but maybe I should just do it and then get a suit as well.
Well, do it on the holodeck because that's fine because you can have the safeties on.
That's a good idea.
Everything. Absolutely. So, we've got a very exciting episode today, haven't we, Keira?
Yes.
So we are reviewing the original series episode Assignment Earth with Gary Seven himself. What else have we got coming up?
We've got some little newsy bits and we've got some interesting spin-offs that never happened, which I thought was really interesting because I didn't know much about these, so I'm excited to talk about those.
Excellent. Yeah, there's some naff ones in there, but there's some really good ones as well that I wish we'd seen. Yes, I'll be doing an unboxing of one of my latest starships, this time La Sirena from Picard. But first, I think we need to talk about Assignment Earth, don't we?
Absolutely.
So this was the final episode of Series 2 in the original series, episode 26, which aired on the 29th of March 1968. And that's quite pertinent for something I'm going to mention a little bit later on, but won't just yet. Hello, Matt, by the way. Great to see you here as well. So Assignment. So you watched Assignment. Now, when you messaged me about it, I got the impression you'd not seen it before. Is that?
Yeah. So I actually did watch all of the original series with my dad when I was very little. So I don't really have any memories of it. And then as an adult, I've sort of seen bits here and there, and I've watched like the odd episode on its own. But this is one that I hadn't revisited with an actual adult memory intact. So it was nice to sort of watch it as if it was the first time. So it was interesting for me because although I grew up with Next Generation and Voyager, the original series wasn't one that I sort of revisited much. So yeah, this one was a nice one to get me back into it. And now I want to go and watch all of it. So there you go.
Absolutely, and so you should. Definitely. I mean, as original series episodes go, I have very, very mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, I love the... In fact, do you know what? I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. Let's talk about the plot itself. So, the Enterprise goes back in time for vague reasons that have more to do with setting up a spin-off series than they do actual plot. But they go back to 1968 just to monitor Earth avoiding destruction when they intercept a human being beaming from 1,000 light years away, they say, from a hidden planet, Gary 7, who is an agent acting on behalf of an alien species who doesn't want us to destroy ourselves. So he claims. The dilemma the Enterprise crew face is he telling the truth, or is he just from the future himself trying to destroy humanity? And they end up working at cross purposes regarding a nuclear missile launch, but they end up becoming friends along the way. And really this whole thing was to set up this spin-off series, which is why we're reviewing it this week, because it's all about spin-offs this week. This series was going to be called Assignment Earth. Originally, it was a totally separate premise, but yes. So you enjoyed the episode overall, then?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. There were a few moments where I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. Like the whole idea of them going back in time on purpose for historical research. I was like, they could have fleshed that out a little bit more to make it make sense, especially because that undermines some of the whole like temporal prime directive initiatives that are more heavily touched on in later series. But it was a fun episode. I really enjoyed it, and I always love time travel episodes where you get to see the Trek characters from the future, idealistic society going back in time and immersing themselves in a culture they're not personally familiar with, because it's always like it's different for them and they don't understand why they are the way they are, because things existed in that time period that don't exist today, they don't exist in future generations in Trek. Yes. So it's interesting to see them time travel. I love time travel episodes.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're absolutely hit the nail on the head. In future episodes, in Next Generation era, it absolutely wouldn't be allowed for them to go back in time and the way they did. But the lore itself was still very, very early in creation, I mean, it's an interesting thing to note that in the original series they never mention what year it's actually set. One of the reasons for using a star date was to avoid setting it in a specific time frame. So it could be 1,000 years from now, it could be 2,000 years from now, it could be 50 years from now. It's up to the viewer's imagination. Roddenberry was quite specific about that when the original series was launched, because there's an interesting bit quite early on when Gary Stu says, "Oh, a human and a Vulcan together? Well, you must be from the future." And then he talks about the planet isn't even discovered in your era. Well, he doesn't know what era they're from, just that they're from the future.
Oh yeah.
So that was bit of a. I mean, it's full of plot holes, and I have very, very mixed feelings about this particular episode in general, because on the one hand, I love the concept of Gary 7. And I'd love to have seen the spin-off series.
Oh, I would, yeah, definitely. He reminded me of like James Bond crossed with Doctor Who.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the Doctor Who thing's quite interesting. Well, actually, no, I'll mention it now because he has this device called a pen.
Servo.
Pen servo. Thank you very much. Which is so much like a sonic screwdriver.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, and a lot of people have speculated that one has stolen the idea from the other over the years.
It did cross my mind, like maybe that's where it came from.
They are so similar, aren't they? I mean, and instantly it puts you in mind of that. But the reason I mentioned that the date it came out 29th of March 68 is relevant. It is to do with this, because it was only a few days away from the Doctor Who episode where we first get to see a sonic screwdriver.
So it's potential then that they just had these ideas completely separately. Nobody copied.
Nope, it was complete coincidence.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Isn't it,
Those
though?
kinds of coincidences are so rare.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they've missed a trick later on down the line with a crossover opportunity. So we hear about General Trelane, retired, the Squire of Gothos being a member of the Q Continuum potentially. Well, Gary Seven could quite easily be a Time Lord.
Definitely. I mean,
yeah.
Because he says that they're like the perfect human, aren't they? They've been sort of bred by this other race on this other planet to be perfect. But there's no reason why they might not have chosen a Time Lord for that purpose.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the Time Lords we find out much later have the ability with the the fob watch to basically disguise themselves as a human, and also the mysterious aliens that we never hear about. I mean, he could be human, but they could be Gallifreyans.
Oh my gosh, yes.
There's some strong fan fiction right there, I think.
Oh my goodness, yes. One of the things I found most interesting about the planet that Gary Seven was from is that in the Voyager episode, I think it's in the first season, they land on a planet and it's this absolutely beautiful, picturesque society where everything's perfect and everyone's happy and they all just want to have fun. And they're really advanced and they have the technology and whatever to send them back. That originally was supposed to be based on the planet that Gary Seven was from.
Really?
But the producers didn't like the fact that it would tie Voyager really closely to the original series. So they had to make it a completely separate new planet in order to get that episode through. So I thought that was really interesting.
The Sicarans, wasn't it?
I can't remember the name. The episode is called Prime Factors.
Yes, they had the interspatial doorway thingy. They could transport thousands of light years. Yes. Well, yes, because in fact we see Gary Seven transporting 1,000 light years.
Exactly.
They do mention that the planet is 1,000 light years away, though, and of course, Sikara Prime, if I've got that reference right, is 80,000 light years away.
Yeah, not quite 1,000.
Yeah. But then it wouldn't be the first time they'd retcon stuff. Fantastic. So yeah, the downsides to it, though, I mean, this was the most incompetent we have seen the Enterprise crew. Utterly incompetent throughout, and kind of pointless as well. I mean, Scotty's entire job during the whole episode is just to twiddle knobs on a monitor. That's it. That is his job.
Yeah, it did kind of make me laugh when they see Gary Seven in the transporter room, and he literally just takes 5 of them out straight away. I was like, even if he was a perfect human, he didn't say superhuman. He didn't say he had superhuman strength. So how does that sort of check out?
Yes, I mean, it's difficult to show on screen, but I suppose you would say sort of reflexes and anticipation and knowledge of martial arts, or I don't know. I'm speculating. It was designed to show how effective an agent he was, though. Which
of course, definitely
they did. We have some amazing trivia about the show, don't we? Do you want to kick us off with your first bit?
So the identity of the actor who played Isis, which is Gary Seven's cat, was for many years thought to be a model and actor, Victoria Vetri. I think I'm saying that right.
Yes.
And actually, when you look at pictures of them side by side when they're the same age, they look so similar. It is so easy to understand how people could make that assumption. And even though Victoria Vetri sort of denied it for years and years, it was listed as fact on so many websites that it was her. Until in 2019, the extras call sheet came to light, and the identity of Isis was confirmed to be the contortionist April Tatro, who then did an interview about it. and she confirmed how much she got paid for that day. I thought, have you seen the call sheet?
I haven't seen it. No.
And so I looked at there's a picture of the call sheet online, and it lists the day rate for an extra as $29.15.
Wow.
But then she also got paid overtime for the costume fitting and the makeup time and stuff. So I think she got paid $89 for that one day of work. But if it was just the base rate, $29 for a day, like, it's just mad, isn't it? How different the day rates are today. Gosh.
By comparison, though, that's probably better than what. Well, I do the occasional bit of extras work myself. I don't know if you do. It's probably a better rate than what we get.
I don't know how much that is in pounds, but $89.
Probably about £20. But yeah, as a ratio, it's quite good.
It's £64.17, $89. So that's slightly less than the day rate that we get today. So probably much better than what extras were getting in the UK at that time.
Oh yeah, totally. And yeah, what was it? 60 years ago, nearly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's ages ago.
I know. My goodness.
Did you hear that she also was asked out on a date by William Shatner?
No. Oh, tell me this.
Yeah. So he asked her out, and this was like towards the end of his marriage, and a lot of people sort of speculated that it was already over, like divorce papers hadn't gone through, but it was pretty much done. He asked her out on a date, and they went for lunch, even though 2 weeks later she was due to be married herself.
Oh.
But I think, just a lunch date, it's quite innocent, isn't it? And I mean, if William Shatner asked you out, you probably would say yes.
Well, I could understand why you might. I might be a bit more hesitant. I mean, I'm sure. Well, I was about to say, I'm sure he's a lovely chap. No, I've seen his tweets. He's really not. He's a terrible person. But no, I mean, there's the whole. I mean, it's sad to say, but of course, the casting couch thing and the, getting a
unfortunate times, definitely
getting a leg up in your career by getting your leg over.
Oh God.
Kat has said she wouldn't. No, because Kat's got taste.
If I was an actor in that era, and someone like the lead actor from a show asked me to go for lunch with them, I'd probably say yes. I wouldn't do anything more than that, but going for lunch is harmless. And it wasn't widely accepted that he was a bit of a knob back then, so.
No. No. Although I don't know. It was a different time, let's
exactly.
we can agree on that. So moving, unless there's anything else about April.
That's everything I managed to find about her.
Okay. Well, my first bit of trivia is it feels quite lame by comparison to yours. This is the first episode of Star Trek where time travel was done deliberately. The previous episodes, Tomorrow is Yesterday, and the other one, whose name I've forgotten, they were accidental time travel. This one is the first one where, they decided to travel through time and use the slingshot effect accordingly. That's it.
Lovely.
Over to you.
The next bit of info was that this was meant to be a sort of backdoor pilot for a spin-off called Assignment Earth, which would focus on Gary Seven and Roberta Lincoln. It never happened. I don't think they were all too excited about doing a spin-off like that. So they sort of used it as a Trek episode in the hopes that people would like it and then it might get picked up further down the line. It never did. But I'm quite glad they made it because I really enjoyed it. And I think it would have been nice to see that spin-off because I like shows like that. But yeah, they had assumed that Star Trek would fail at the end of the second season. But it didn't. It had a third, so not quite.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you say, they were expecting it to fail. I know Roddenberry pitched Assignment Earth initially and was rejected, and that's why he was trying to sneak it in as a pilot episode that way. Because I've seen the treatment for it as a standalone, and it starts off quite differently. Obviously, there's no Enterprise in it, but Roberta Lincoln ends up time traveling back in time to get her to get herself to apply for the job as the secretary. It's
wow,
quite a convoluted. But you're into the whole predestination paradox stuff there that temporal investigations hate.
I like that stuff. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and Ed has said it's interesting. The initial log entry, Kirk mentions their mission, historical research. No wonder temporal investigations hate him. Yeah, absolutely. More violations than anyone else on record.
So funny.
There we go.
Oh dear.
Fantastic. And yeah, so obviously this was the first spin-off. So if we go into that, yeah, Assignment Earth, like we say, was the very first potential spin-off that never really happened. And it's a shame. It is a shame. As an aside, a friend of mine, Craig, who watches these on catch-up because he's not usually around at the right time, he and I went to school together and were both massive Trekkies. A couple of weeks ago, we were we said we'd try and come up with a reasonable Star Trek film plot between us, just for shits and giggles. And we ended up actually surrounding this entire plot around Gary 7, or Gary 7 and Roberta's offspring, in fact.
So you imagine that they would have children?
Yes, very much so. Although thinking about it, because it would be set modern day in the JJ verse, it would probably be their grandchild.
Right.
But still carrying out the same mission.
Do you think then that the Gary's perfect human genes would be passed down, or do you think they would be too diluted?
Well, I don't know if it's... I mean, here's where it gets a bit vague, because is it that Gary's genes are perfect, or he has just been raised in a perfect environment?
I think it may be a mixture of both, because they did say that they'd been bred over generations to like selective breeding, I guess.
Like Khan.
C'est possible.
Yeah, because in Space Seed, of course, the original Khan episode, they don't talk about genetic manipulation, they just talk about selective breeding. And that's how you get these superhumans. So I don't see why such things wouldn't be passed down. And of course, maybe the child was sent away to this other planet to be raised in the first place.
Oh, that's a good point.
There's all sorts of different ways you can go down that route. But yeah, we thought maybe something involving George Kirk, so Jim's brother, who has gone back in time to set off a bomb that will launch the eugenics wars, and then, of course, Gary 7's offspring tries to stop them, and then the Enterprise crew have to come back in time and ensure that it actually happens.
Oh, that
was the thinking. You got that kind of conflict and cross purposes thing.
Very nice.
Yeah, that was the plan. But yes, I've gone completely off topic now. So spin-offs then. We've talked about Assignment Earth. What next on the spin-offs?
So there was going to be a 4th season of the original series and plans for a second core-based episode, which would have been 1969 to 1970, so like a year or two after Assignment Earth. This one on the list.
Yes, and Cora, of course, the Klingon captain who Kirk face us off against. Yes, there was another spin-off planned during the second season of the original series, one set completely away from the Enterprise, based on a Federation hospital ship, and that was going to be called Hope Ship. Hope Ship. It did actually become a novel in 1994, though, called These
Year I was born.
Voyagers. Oh, God.
Sorry.
I was 21.
Oh. Wow.
Right. Okay, that ends today's stream. No.
I'm so sorry. I'll never mention my age again.
No, it's fine. Yeah, so the novel, if you want to explore that, is called These Are the Voyagers, TOS Season 2.
Very good. And there was also a Harry Mudd spin-off discussed, but it was only discussed in the early stages, and Roger C. Carmel, who played Harry, wasn't even aware of it at the time of discussion.
Yeah, it makes you wonder just how serious they were with something like that if they've not even talked to the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have just been them discussing it like you told me about your film plot.
It could have been, yes. Although probably in less of a position than the XX. Kat has said you're a babby.
I'm a babby, yes.
She's
I'm
right.
a 27-year-old baby.
Yes. Ed seems to like the idea of Hope Ship. General Hospital meets the Love Boat meets Trek.
Oh, yeah. That does sound good, actually. I would probably watch that. Yeah. I love like hospital and medical series, though, so I'd be into that because the sort of the science behind a lot of the Trek medical things is really, really cool.
Yes.
Although I've seen a lot of people criticise that the episodes where they're wearing, like, they're meant to be surgical scrubs, but they're red.
Yes.
So it's like, how... The reason that scrubs are, like, generally a lighter, colder colour, like blue, is so that you can see really clearly if you get bodily fluids on you. But if it's red, you wouldn't be able to see that very clearly, would you?
Well, that applies for humans, but, of course, many species, Vulcans, for example... and Vulcans, there's even like mention about Vulcans making good doctors and what have you. So their blood is green. So red.
That's true.
Kind of makes sense to me from that perspective.
It would. I'm thinking of the episode in Next Generation where Picard goes in for heart surgery.
Tapestry.
And that's one of them, but there's a much earlier one where he's like really secretive about it and he doesn't want anyone to know that he's having surgery. And then the doctor can't make it, so Beverly turns up in the red scrubs, and I was like,
Yes, it's a Wesley episode, which is why I try and put it out of my mind.
Shut up, Wes.
Exactly. We've got a bot in the chat.
A bot?
So, XA Lucas, do we want to become famous? XA Lucas can fuck off.
I don't want to be famous, but I'll take some money.
Absolutely. So that's the Harry Mudd one. So shortly after the original series was cancelled, they discussed a spin-off, speaking of Vulcans, following the adventures of Spock himself, living back on Vulcan amongst other Vulcans, but Roddenberry himself didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I can see why, because if you put that on the timeline, then there's going to be a whole period of time where Spock isn't with the Enterprise, and so that would mean that any future references to the Enterprise, during that timeline, you would have to have Spock not involved at all.
Yes.
So if he had future plans for the Enterprise, then he would probably want Spock to be involved, which makes sense. It would be interesting to see something on Vulcan, but maybe not with Spock.
Yeah, a short movie or a 1 hour special would be, kind of the Star Trek equivalent of the Life Day in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Oh, although not as terrible. Fantastic. What else we got?
So the first animated series, so prior to the animated series, proposed crews simply visiting alien worlds and shooting everything that seemed different or ugly, which sounds really nice. How
Totally
kind.
not Trek.
Like, Prime Directive, what?
I know. I mean, yeah. As bizarre as it sounds, it was seriously discussed.
I know, that's mad, isn't it?
Yeah. There we go. But getting back onto what's Ed said here? Klingon Trek, the animated series. I've not heard of Klingon, the Great Tribble Hunt. Is that a proposal, Ed, or is that one you're aware of that we haven't mentioned? That will be interesting. Definitely. So where are we? So a very big spin-off that almost happened. It would make a great animated series. You're right, Ed. Was Star Trek Phase 2, also known as Star Trek 2. The idea was it was going to be another second 5-year mission for the Enterprise crew on board a refitted Enterprise. They were due to start production in 1977. The Paramount got twitchy though, because they felt that advertisers wouldn't be overly interested. They ended up downgrading that concept to being a TV movie, but then they turned that into the motion picture, and we know how that ended. Yes, so Ed's mentioned the Ralph McQuarrie sketch, which became the Discovery ship. Yes, sort of. There's a lot of similarities there.
Very interesting. So next up is prior to Next Generation, several ideas were discussed. And the closest, other than Next Generation, was a prequel to the original series set on a starship run by cadets from Starfleet Academy with a Vulcan captain.
Oh, Enterprise meets Red Squad.
I think I would have watched that, to be fair. I think I would have quite enjoyed... If it was just cadets on there, like, would it... I imagine it would be like a training sort of ship.
Yeah. I mean, that's why your Vulcan captain, you've got an actual officer. But
yeah, definitely. I would watch that. I want to know, like, because you get to see bits here and there about the training they go through, but you don't really get to follow them through Starfleet Academy. I would watch a whole series about someone going through the academy.
Yes, but there is talk at the moment of a Starfleet Academy spin-off series. It's probably not going to happen, so don't get too excited.
No.
But it is being talked about at the moment. Coming forward then to 1990, so Next Generation in full swing, there was proposal for an animated series which saw characters from both the Next Generation and the original series brought together. That would have been terrible.
You know what? It could have gone amazingly or absolutely awfully, and I'm leaning towards awfully, and they probably saw that too, and that's why they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Although it was nice in one of the Next Generation episodes, I can't remember. I'm rubbish at remembering the name of episodes, but where I think it might have just been called Dyson Sphere, where they find the Dyson Sphere and Scotty has put his, that's it. Scotty has put his DNA whatever into the transporter, so they managed to bring him out, and he's like aged, and they have that sort of moment between him and Geordie where they're the engineers, having their little engineering time, and I really liked that. But I don't think having them all together would have worked.
No, and it's nice for a one-off episode like that as a little trip, nostalgic trip. But yeah, they were just such different shows, and I couldn't have seen them gelling.
Yeah,
not for a series.
Yes. Well, and a year after that, in 1991, there was, this is my favourite one, by the way, that I would definitely 100% watch. An idea for a sitcom featuring Loaxana Troy, Oh my goodness, can you imagine?
Unfortunately, I can't, and I think it would be terrible.
It would be like Bewitched, or I don't know. I think it would just be so funny. Like, I remember first watching her and being really annoyed by her and completely understanding why Deanna is so apprehensive every time she's on board. She's like, my mother is on board. And I'm just like, yeah, she's really annoying. But the older I get, the more I love her. I really do.
I like the character, and we've seen some depth to the character now, which I think makes the world of difference, especially in Deep Space Nine. But yeah, a bit of a Star Trek sitcom around her.
Maybe sitcom isn't the best format for something like that, but I could definitely see her, like, her life being really interesting.
Yes. I can see that.
Do you have a favourite Loaxana moment?
Gosh. I would say actually my favourite Loaxana episode, I don't know about a moment, but my favourite episode, and I don't know the name of this episode, is the one where she's looking after Alexander Rozhenko.
Yes!
Son.
I was going to say the same thing, when they're in the mud bath together and they're just talking about life. I love that. That's my favourite one.
Yes.
She's amazing.
Absolutely. And do you know what? It gets me that, the lack of, I was going to say inhibitions, but she truly is a joyful character, and that comes across so well.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Definitely.
Moving forward, though, from the early 90s to the late 90s, Paramount considered a CGI cartoon series, but it was only very briefly talked about. They had no real plans for development. And I, having seen Lower Decks now, I like the Star Trek animated to be animated. I'm reserving judgment about Prodigy, so we will see.
We shall see. Yes, I'm quite excited to see Prodigy, and the differences between Lower Decks and that sort of CGI animation. I'm curious, very curious.
Yeah, I can see with the market they're aiming Prodigy at, it being the right format.
Yeah, I mean, it's going on Nickelodeon, isn't it? Which, most children's TV programs these days are that kind of animation. And
yes.
I think the reason that Lower Decks is different is because it's aimed at adults, and we're used to that sort of 2D animation, whereas the younger generations prefer the 3D stuff. So I can see why they've done it.
Oh, totally. Cool.
And then in 2000, Armin Shimmerman started developing a series exploring Quark and Rom's teenage years, which also would have been animated.
And this is my favourite spin-off idea of all of them. I mean, I love Quark and Rom to bits.
I think Teenage Ferengi just would have been so funny.
In fact, I tweeted Armin Shimmerman quite recently to ask him if he's going to resurrect that idea. Because it was, at the time, I think it was shot down because, well, no, we don't really want to be doing an animated series. But now, of course, animated series are taking off within Trek, so maybe now is the time for that. There were plans in 2003 for another CGI series, this time with Sulu having taken over the captain's chair of the Enterprise B, so that would have required a bit of manoeuvring lore-wise, but it would have been called The Lions of the Night.
Yeah.
Interesting title.
Yeah, that's quite obscure, isn't it, considering the other titles you have in Trek.
Absolutely.
I want to know what would make... Would it be him as the lion, him and his crew, or Lions of the Night, someone there? Yeah, it could be very interesting.
Yeah, indeed.
And there was plans for a 5th season of Enterprise, with a refit NX-01 that had a secondary hull and started to look closer to the original series Enterprise.
Yes, I think they planned out a whole raft of stories for it, but of course we know how that went.
I've never really been into Enterprise. I remember watching it a bit when I was younger and just it not really floating my boat like the other ones do.
Yeah. In 2004, this is quite a fascinating one. J. Michael Straczynski, who of course is famous for having created Babylon 5 and being a regular writer for Spider-Man, he proposed a reboot of the original series back in 2004. That was going to be an actual series rather than the film, but of course they ended up going down the J.J. Abrams route ultimately.
Do you think it would have been better if they'd done a series instead of the J.J. Abrams films?
I think it would have been different, and I think with J. Michael Straczynski heading it, it would have been very different. It would have been much darker, and my taste in episodes being what they are, I would have loved it.
I do prefer darker episodes as well, like we discussed last week. I prefer it to have that edge. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Interesting. And then in 2006, animated series Final Frontier was proposed, which would have been set on Enterprise in 2528, which would have shown a darker future. So maybe we would have enjoyed that as well, Stu.
Absolutely. And that's way, way, way into the future. I think it's even beyond... so spoiler alert for anyone who's not up to date with Discovery yet. But it would be beyond where they end up. I think that's way into the Trek future.
I'm trying to remember what year that in Voyager where they meet the people from the future and they tell them about the Temporal Prime Directive. Were they from 2600 or was it 2900?
Oh yes, I can't remember.
Because if it was 2600, then it may have been like a precursor to them forming the time travel and temporal prime directive and things like that.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, I'd have to look at a timeline to remind myself. Can't remember off the top of my head. It would have been interesting. And Jonathan Frakes, so obviously famously playing Will Riker, developed an idea for a series set, unsurprisingly, on the Titan. And it would have been more of a family-based episode because, of course, Deanna there would have shown them sort of having their kids and raising them. They'd have had much more family drama than sort of the action-adventure. But that wasn't taken up.
No. I love it when actors propose things for themselves because it's like they just want their role back. You know what I mean? Because the next one actually is Michael Dorn also proposed the Worf Chronicles, which would have focused on the Klingon Empire. I think there's quite a lot of focus on his character and the Klingon Empire during Next Generation, and I feel like it had kind of been done, which is probably why they didn't take up that series because it was quite heavily focused on the Klingons throughout Next Generation.
It was, and I'm inclined to agree. I think Worf's character has been told. I mean, as much as I love the character, I feel we're done with him now.
Yeah, there's only so much of that you can do, really. And if they did do a series called the Worf Chronicles, that's so self-indulgent, isn't it? Like, I want to make a series about my character, and I'm going to call it My Character's Chronicles. It maybe could have worked as like a mini series or something, but it wouldn't have been as extensive, and I don't think it would have been as interesting.
No, indeed. And Ed has put in the comments that he was reading earlier about Colmini would consider returning as Chief O'Brien, but there has to be a really good reason, and nobody's approached him as yet. He's blown very hot and cold historically about this. As Colmini. Of course, the fandom would love to see him back. He is an absolute favourite. But whether, I don't know, would it be pandering? to bring him back, to sort of shoehorn him into Picard?
If there's a good reason for it, I wouldn't say no. And pandering maybe, but if he's up for it and there is a good reason for it, then don't see why not.
Yes. I mean, I
looked up the Sorry.
No, go on.
I was going to say, I looked up the temporal agents, by the way, and they're from the 26th century, so 2500s. So that would have been perfect timing for that.
Ah, excellent. Yes, I'm, in terms of the pandering thing, I'm holding my breath and bracing myself for Guinan's appearance in Picard.
Oh my God. She is one of my favourite characters.
Oh, really?
Yes, I love her. I love her so much.
Oh, I think she's awful.
Why?
Do you know what? That's a whole other stream right there.
Next week. Or not next week, but in the future.
Absolutely. Oh, we'll definitely get into that one. Fantastic. Now, it's not just series that had ideas that never went forward. We've got a list of a few movies that never happened as well. In 1975, there was going to be a movie called The God Thing, where they explore further this idea that, gods are aliens.
That would have been interesting. Although in the 70s, that would have been hard to, with the level of technology that they had to do any, like the special effects and stuff. I think if that was revisited now, that could be really good.
Potentially, but I mean, don't forget the motion picture was the 70s, as was Star Wars.
Yeah.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Alien.
Was that? Oh, it was the very late 70s, wasn't it? Alien. Was it 79?
Still 70s.
I know. I know.
Like me, I'm 70s. Yes.
Amazing. Yes, and then in 1976 was the proposed Star Trek Planet of the Titans.
Yes, absolutely, where Ed mentioned Ralph McQuarrie's sketch for a redesigned Enterprise. I think that's really where it would have featured and come into its own. Originally, the second Star Trek movie was going to be called Star Trek 3. The idea being the original series was Star Trek 1, the motion picture was Star Trek 2, and this would have been Star Trek 3. That wouldn't have confused anything. But instead of Wrath of Khan, this would have involved time travel, Klingons, and the easy for me to say, assassination of JFK.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because in the episode that we were discussing today, Assignment Earth, they mention an assassination right at the beginning, and then they just never talk about it again.
Absolutely. And of course, JFK, his assassination has been explored in time travel so many times now.
Yeah.
I mean, Red Dwarf did it really well.
You know what? I've never properly watched Red Dwarf.
Oh, Keira, we need a word.
I've seen a few episodes here and there, but I've never sat down and watched all of it. So maybe I'll add that to the list.
Yes, do.
So next up on the movies that never happened was the 1989 Star Trek: The First Adventure, aka Starfleet Academy.
And you said you would like to see Starfleet cadets going through, so yeah, Starfleet Academy movie.
I love things like that where you get, the young people learning, finding their way in life, and any sort of film or series that's set in that kind of world, I really enjoy. I know it's completely unrelated, but Legally Blonde, for example, she's becoming a new person, learning how to be a lawyer, changing her whole life, her future. I love it. And all the other films and stuff set, most of them are comedies I see set in schools and high schools and universities and stuff, but I really enjoy it. Maybe it's just me that I just love that kind of thing.
Fresh Meat here in the UK was a good comedy series.
Yes, and Skins and things like that.
Kat has said she's agreed. She said she would too. Her favourite bit of Star Trek Online is literally the first few minutes wandering around the academy.
I've not played Star Trek Online yet. I think that'd be really cool. Do you get to see when you're
Keira,
wandering
we
around the
need a
academy?
word. I'm going to
so
get a
busy,
T-shirt
Stu.
made with Keira, we need a word.
Kira, watch more TV. Kira, don't go to work.
Play Star Trek Online. You're going to tell me you haven't played Bridge Crew next.
I haven't.
Right, moving on. Well, actually, I mean, so every Thursday night I've been doing a live stream of myself and Amy and Ed and other people playing Bridge Crew. We had our last session Thursday just gone, where we finally beat the Borg. Yay!
Well done.
Ed has said, I need to put you in the warp core.
That's really harsh.
He does have a history of putting people in the warp core, though, so I wouldn't take it personally.
Only if you film it and put it online for the world to see, because I want to be remembered if I'm going out that way.
You're not going to be forgotten, that's for certain. Yes, Kat says it is standard punishment from Ed. So, back to our movies that never happened. In 1997, those of us that can remember back that far, IMAX was taking off in a very, very big way, and there were plans to have a 40-minute 3D CGI Star Trek adventure as part of IMAX. But it never happened.
That would have been cool. I think
Yeah.
I enjoyed, I really loved IMAX things when I was younger. The one that I remember the most is, I think I was at Disneyland and there was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but it was Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. That's my earliest IMAX memory. Star Trek would have been much cooler.
It would. And of course, Bristol, which is where you're staying at the moment, they have massive IMAX. Well, is it still there?
You know what? I don't know. If it is, it'd be shut at the moment. Thanks, Rona. But I'll have a look into that actually and see, because that might be a nice, fun thing to do.
Yeah.
And then the final one on the list of movies that never happened was 2005 Star Trek: The Beginning, which would have been set in between Enterprise and the original series.
There's a lot of desire, it seems, more from production, I think, than fans, to sort of fill in the gaps of those two eras. I don't know. I like them being ambiguous.
Yeah, I quite like, because you can sort of fill in the gaps yourself and use your imagination a bit like that. I find that a lot of the time in the US especially, they feel like they have to spoon feed the audience and they treat the audience almost like they're stupid. And when you watch a lot of British made film and television, you don't get that so much. So a lot of Americans who watch a British series are just like, I don't get it. I don't understand, where's the information? Like, where's the exposition? And it's like, it's left out on purpose so you can fill in the blanks yourself.
Yeah.
Use your imagination. So I quite like that it's ambiguous.
Yes, absolutely. So, moving from the era between the Enterprise and the Next Generation, moving right the way forward to the end of the 2300s, we are going to go over to this week's unboxing. And here we are. So, this week it is La Sirena from Star Trek Picard. Now, this is the first Eaglemoss Hero Collector ship from its new Universe line, which is replacing the previous Discovery and Star Trek Starships collections. So I have already opened this, I'll be honest, because I had to check the contents, because I was very upset that the box is all knackered and damaged. It came that way. That's not me that's done that. But I'm pleased to say the contents are safe. But as a collector, alright, that sort of thing does piss me off a bit. But I do feel like I can't send it back just because the box. But there we go.
It's a shame, isn't it?
It is. But, so, opening it up. La Sirena, of course, is a Kaplan F-17 speed fighter. It was shown in 23.99 in Picard. It was hired by Picard to find Dr. Maddox and Soji Asher. And it is officially a non-Federation ship that has been retrofitted with Federation technology. Its captain is Captain Rios, who is an ex-Federation first officer. And it took me far too long to realise that the guy playing Rios is Isaac Mendez from Heroes. So yeah, it took me way too long. So we have the usual magazine, which is the wrong size to fit in Eaglemoss's existing binders, and still no sign of them producing the right size binders. Get your shit together, Eaglemoss. I say this every week, but they still haven't done it. But we have some lovely plans and artwork. I wasn't a fan of La Sirena when we first saw it, because it differed so differently from most Star Trek ships, but it is sort of growing on me. I would have liked that colour much better than this bright red colourful thing. You've got some actual vessels it's been based on, apparently. There we go. I'll be reading that in more depth later on, but the usual magazine. And here we are with the ship itself. It's a good weight to it, which I always like to feel, because these are officially die-cast models. Some of them do have a lot of plastic on. I think these pods are plastic, but the bulk of it, certainly these 4 bits and the main body, are die-cast. Like I say, as a ship, it is growing on me. But yes, I can sort of see, actually, when you turn it over, hold it to the camera better, some people will remember the Vulcan long-range shuttle from the motion picture, the one that brings Spock to the Enterprise and catches up with them. You can almost see a similar sort of design that's been added to afterwards when you flip it upside down. So I don't know if that was an intentional design or just a happy coincidence, but it certainly makes me feel happier about it as a Star Trek ship. But it's a nice model. It's not the cheapest of ones. They're going for these larger models for the collection moving forward, which means that I'll run out of space to put these things, which I'm very, very close to already. So I'm running out of space, which the larger models doesn't help, and of course the price tag doesn't help either, but they do cram in far, far more detail, and this has some exquisite detail. This is not the best camera, unfortunately, but you can probably see the lines on the ship. It is very, very nice, and particularly underneath you get some of the detail that you didn't really get to see on screen as well. So yeah, a nice model. Like I say, shame about the box, and it's a bugger about the magazines again, but there we go.
It's nice. I like that one. It makes me think of like the really obnoxious smaller ships that you see in Star Wars. Like I can imagine Han Solo having a great time riding that around.
Yes. Have you watched Picard yet?
I have not watched Picard yet, because I'm doing my run through of Next Generation and Deep Space Nine before I do Picard, because I want to make sure that everything else is fresh in my mind when I start it.
Yes. Well, you'll probably find when you do start watching it, that's not where the only similarity with Han Solo is.
Okay. I'll bear that in mind.
Personal thought, but I'll stop there for fear of giving you any spoilers.
Thank you.
Okay, so that leaves us nicely on. Oh, we've had some comments about it though. Yeah, Cass suggested ask them for a new sleeve. Yeah, they can say no, but only if I ask them. That's very, very true. Actually, they tend historically their method is just like, oh yeah, send it back to us, we'll send you a new one, and they tend to do that quite free and easily. So I don't know. I think the more I return stuff unnecessarily, the more it puts the price up. So I'm in two minds, but I'll give that a thought. Yeah, ask them for a new box, not even the polystyrene. Ed has, he agrees it does look a bit Vulcan shuttley. Paul, hello Paul, nice to see you. Paul likes it. And Ed says, with so many factions forming, Federation transports and civilian ships could all have different manners of looks to them. So, absolutely. That was a popular little ship then. Okay, fantastic. So, Trek news, and I'm going to kick us off with a bit. Regular viewers, of course, will know that every second Wednesday, myself, Ed, Amy, and Usher and Matt all play Star Trek Adventures, the Modiphius role-playing game. And indeed, we have our next episode coming this very Wednesday. Well, this week, Modiphius have released the Klingon Quick Start Guide for Star Trek Adventures. They released the Klingon core rulebook some time ago, a supplement, which was quite expansive. But the Quick Start Guides are really handy for just picking up, flicking through and diving straight in. And as Ed points out, it is also free, which is absolutely brilliant. These are for Klingon player characters, though. Probably won't affect us in game for the time being, but you never know. Watch this space.
Lovely. And next up on the news is new Trek Funko Pops. So you've got Mira Kirk, Spock, Sulu, and Uhura, and also Captain's Chair Kirk, Khan, Gorn, and Spock with cats, which is Isis from Assignment Earth, which is very cool.
Yeah, those Funko Pops are really, really cute. I have drawn the line at collecting those because I've got enough.
You've got no space in your cabinet, Stu.
I literally haven't. So yeah, and it's interesting. They just list it as Spock with cat because they don't want to use the name Isis.
Yeah, I mean it's got a different meaning these days, which is really unfortunate, and quite sad because Isis was the ancient Egyptian goddess and had such a powerful meaning, and now there's a lot of human people who have the name Isis who were given that name way before the terrorist organization, which I think it's a shame that they've sort of commandeered that name because it had such beautiful meaning before that.
Yes, and Ed has said even the dog from Downton Abbey was referenced less, and indeed prior to Downton Abbey, I had a border collie called Isis. It's very, very sad. I think we need to reclaim the word.
Let's make it positive again.
Absolutely. But yeah, the Funko Pops, they do look quite cool. They're worth a quick Google if you like that sort of thing. In Discovery, now this is not Discovery episode news or anything like that, but sticking with cats, this could just as easily be a cat episode the way this is going. But Buck's cat Grudge is getting her own book. Not that kind of book, not the character book. This is a book that you would read. God, this is confusing. So Grudge is getting her own papery foldy thing. It's going to be a collection of thoughts and wisdom from Grudge, who we know is a queen. And things will be from a cat perspective's outlook on life. That comes out on the 9th of November.
So long away.
I know. But we're fresh. We're right in with the news as it happens.
Love it. Very good. And thinking of things which are a long time away, the Voyager documentary reached their stretch goal of $750,000 this week. Yay. Which is amazing, which means that there will be a poster made of all of the donors' photographs, which I spoke to one of the producers on Twitter, and he said that they will be sending out information to the backers, how they can submit their pictures to be used in this poster. So that's very cool.
And that includes you, doesn't it?
It does. And hopefully it will include me twice because I donated on 2 separate occasions.
Oh.
They've also announced, they did a little poll where they said, if we reach this stretch goal, which of our next stretch goals would you like us to reveal? And everyone was like, all of them. We want to know what all of them are. So they released the information for the next 3 stretch goals. So if they reach, where is it, 825k, they will remaster some of Voyager's footage to be used in HD in the documentary. If they reach 900k, they will remaster all of Voyager into HD, which just literally, like, you can probably see it on my face. It makes me so excited. Voyager, I'm a Voyager baby. If they remastered it, I would literally just be over the moon. And they announced that their final stretch goal, number 10, would be $1 million, and that would be some exclusive, never before seen Voyager surprise. They also put a disclaimer up saying that those are their intentions, but they would have to get permission, obviously, to do those kinds of things. So if the permissions are not given, they would put the rest of that money into other parts of the project instead. And also talking about the...
Sorry, just to interrupt. Is it still Viacom that owns Voyager?
Yes, Viacom CBS.
Okay, because they worked really closely with them on the Deep Space Nine, What Were Left Behind. So I can't imagine them saying no.
Yeah, no, I think they would say yes, because, you know, if they get someone else to remaster their stuff, like, they don't have to do the work and they can still reap the benefits. So surely they would just agree to it. Yeah. But yeah, they also had a few articles published about the documentary in the last week. It is officially the most successful Indiegogo documentary campaign ever.
Really? Oh, that is awesome.
I think it's amazing. And considering the number of people who say, oh, Voyager's the worst Trek, well, clearly not right now. It's got nearly 8,000 backers, and in British money, that's just under £600,000.
They're doing absolutely awesome. Well, let's hope they get all these stretch goals and get to, and we've got to say it right, $1 million. And what? So they say a Voyager surprise that's never been seen before. What?
Yeah.
Any hints?
It does not give any hints. It says stretch goal 10, 1 million, exclusive, never before seen Voyager surprise. So I don't know whether this is like unreleased footage, deleted scenes, whether it's scripts that never got made. It honestly could be anything. There is no clue. There's no clues on the website.
Maybe it's a final scene showing that actually it was all Will Riker's dream all along.
Well, that would explain some of the more thirsty episodes in like season 3. Every other episode was about someone having a crush on someone. It would make perfect sense if this was just Will Riker fanfic.
But there'd been 3 years in, not getting any. It's bound to take its toll. It's bound to. Fantastic. Well, looking forward to hearing more about that as it develops. Tomorrow, it might be a dick, but we'll wish him happy birthday anyway. Happy birthday for the Shat, William Shatner.
Happy
himself.
birthday, Shatner.
Tomorrow. He turns 90.
That's mad, isn't it?
I know. It's scary. Because he doesn't look that old to me.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't look 90, that's for sure. No, definitely not. And speaking of 90th birthdays, the 26th of March would have been Leonard Nimoy's 90th birthday. And then his hometown has declared the 26th of March Leonard Nimoy Day. So roll on the 26th where we can celebrate one of the finest actors of our time.
Absolutely. Wow. Leonard Nimoy Day. That's one for the calendar. Definitely.
Love it.
Oh, this has been awesome. And another date for the calendar will be next Sunday, of course. Now, I know, Keira, sadly you won't be able to join for every single week, will you?
No, for the next 2 weeks I will be away shooting a film, so...
Excellent. Can you tell us anything about it?
I cannot. I have signed a non-disclosure agreement.
Off and the way. Probably should have asked you first off air.
It always helps to check, doesn't it? But yeah, so it's exciting. My first ever feature film where I'm not an extra, I'm an actual speaking role. So it's going to be a fun time for me, and I'm sure once I'm on set with the director and the cast and crew, I can maybe give you a bit more info and see what I'm allowed to say. So I'll let you know.
Excellent. Oh, I'll look forward to that. I've got a sneaking suspicion I might know who it is as well that's doing it, because I've seen a different post recently. Mutual friend, possibly?
Absolutely. We both know him very well.
Oh, well, he is a huge amount of fun to work for on set. So, yeah. Cool. Don't let him kill you off too early. That's my best advice. That's a whole other story about when I worked with him. Anyway, enjoy that. 2 weeks of that. Brilliant. Well, we'll look forward to hearing from you when you get back. But in the meantime, we will, of course, next week still be having more updates. We'll have another unboxing. And as suggested by Usher, the Bee Daddy himself, we will be doing a deep dive on the history and the pros and cons of the Prime Directive itself. And as such, I'm suggesting I review the Enterprise episode Dear Doctor, which, although it predates the Prime Directive, does show why it's really important and kind of shows the formation of the Prime Directive. But if you can, any of you can think of a better episode to review that connects with the Prime Directive, do let me know in the Discord. Links are below. Do join in that community. We have a lot of fun. And if you can't wait till next Sunday for your Star Trek fix, then on Wednesday we will be playing Star Trek Adventures, as mentioned earlier, with Modiphius. The crew are in danger. What are they going to do? How are they going to defeat these Romulans? I'm excited to find out myself. But there we go. Right. Well, thank you so much for this, Keira. I'm so pleased that you're going to be a regular host on this.
I know, me too. Thank you so much for having me and getting me involved. I love this. It's so much fun. I love just talking about something that I've known all my life and chatting with a good friend. So thank you for having me, Stu.
You're very welcome. You will be missed over the next couple of weeks, but have fun nevertheless. And you'll be watching, won't you?
If I can have a break, I'll watch.
In between scenes. Just tell our mutual friend, no, I can't do my scene now. I have to watch a stream.
We'll see how that goes down.
And see if you can sneak your comm badge onto a shot as well.
Oh my gosh, that'd be so funny. I'll bring it with me while I'm on set, and I'll send you a picture.
Yes, do. Oh, in fact, can you post it in the Discord?
Yes, I will. I'll put it in the Discord.
Brilliant. And speaking of Discord, I mentioned earlier your Belana cosplay that you did earlier in the week. I bet our Discord community would love to see those photos.
Oh, okay. I'll put that in the Discord as well today.
Excellent. We will look forward to that. So, in the meantime, peace and long life. And live long and prosper. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.